Madeira Expeditions podcast. All right, that's good now, man. All right.
Sweet.
Yeah, so we're good to go. We're recording, man. Thanks a lot for coming on to the show. We've been talking for ages through a mutual friend, Lukey Robbins, who put me onto you. And when we were talking, it just sounded like such a great story and a great person to have on. So super grateful, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, and thank you for being patient. I feel like we've both been having little things on either side, so it's nice to sit here and the timing feels right.
Yeah, the scheduling one can be tricky. I've got a few endurance runners that I speak with, and I'm sort of scheduling to have on the show, and it's always around, when they're running and what their training schedule is. And with me, it's more, family commitments and work and all those sorts of things, but it's working out. I'm glad, man. It's good. Thanks.
Anytime. Yeah, I can imagine straight after an event or anything like that, the brain's probably at the start of this week, the brain wasn't really ready for anything meaningful to come out of my mouth, I don't think. So, yeah.
Totally. No, I get that. And the main goal is for me is just to, I want to get people when they're in a good zone and in a good space to record some good conversation. So I'm always happy to wait and shuffle people or, whatever that. But I don't really have that sort of fixed schedule where I'm sort of dropping out an episode every week or so. So it's all good. But yeah, how has it been? What's your recent activities been anyway? Training, running, anything else, lifestyle?
Yeah. So a couple months ago, start of July, made the move from WA to the Blue Mountains, and purely based around wanting to be in a bit of a quieter space to create music, but also a big part of it was wanting to be around some steep terrain to train for mountain running. And over the weekend, got to run a 42K, a sky run here. While it doesn't hit the altitudes that it does in Europe or anything like that, had about 2,500 meters of elevation in the race. So it's definitely a very, very challenging race. I said after the race that it was the toughest thing I'd done in my life, full stop. Just because it's a shorter distance. So the intensity that you can run a shorter distance demands a bit more of you. So apart from that, I've been writing a few demos and doing a little bit of video work on the side, but all in all, just trying to get established in the new space that we're living in now.
Well, it sounds like it's working pretty well. I mean, you're getting all the things done and the running's good. And 2,000 meters of vert's probably not a lot to people elsewhere in the world. But, I mean, for us in Australia, I mean, you're probably in some of the hilliest or mountainous terrain in Australia, I would imagine, in the Blue Mountains, right?
Yeah, definitely with regards to steepness, the Blue Mountains has some of the steepest terrain in Australia. Maybe not with length of climbs. I think if you go in Victoria, you can do like Mount Bogong, which is a continuous 1,400 meter climb in about 6 or 7 Ks, which is about as good as it gets in Australia. But one of our favorite ones that the race is actually on the weekend. I loved training on it last year, and whenever I visit, and that one's about 2.5 Ks in length for 620 meters climb. So fair whack for a short distance. So it's unreal to train here.
Yeah, for sure. It's getting you that the lots of up and down, I guess, for which is what you want to get into your legs, because you have been racing a bit in Europe as well, and you're planning to do a little bit more in the future, because you got a podium fairly recently. It was at the Madeira, like the 80K Madeira or something like that. You got a podium on there, right?
Yeah. So the Madeira Island Ultra Trail was an event that my friend Josh Willenott and I went to race in April, and that was entering the unknown a bit, because it was 85 Ks but with 4,800 meters of up and down, and had a really good experience there, and a day that went to plan, and managed to get a third. And my dad often we have this running joke in the family about about don't get fourth, because our family always gets kind of fourth in different things. So I think it was the first time I've ever really got a podium. So, but the whole last part of the race, I was just imagining Dad and being like, I can't get fourth because Dad's never going to let it down. So it was a funny. The
Yeah.
mind games came in strong
And it was
late.
good too because, yeah, just for that extra push at the end, right? Just to get you across the line.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that was the thing. It was like the physical side of things felt pretty good the whole race, but in the last couple hours, the mind games really step up, and you're really forced to just come back to your breath and be present, because there's so much room to just roll an ankle or maybe push a little bit too hard or take the foot off the gas. It's like that's where it gets challenging when you're really fatigued, to just try to stay where you are.
Yeah, and I bet because you're at a point of the race where you're getting pretty gassed and things are starting to sort of drop out. You're getting fatigued. Your thoughts are starting to go elsewhere. I mean, you could look at it as if like, okay, I'm going to just, get through the race and finish. But then that extra push to go, no, I'm going to finish with a place. Obviously you're training and you're progressing into a real sort of performance athlete where, I guess you're going to be wanting to get places, or at least you have expectations to do well in a race rather than sort of just finish. So it's all of those things combined, right, for that extra bit at the end.
Definitely. I think you're spot on. And I guess when you're getting in training, there's a lot of training is obviously at an intensity which is very sustainable, and you're not pushing. But then on that one day that you do the race, it's like, I think for me, I believe in myself and my potential and all the training I've done. So it's kind of wanting to put it all out there, and just whether that is, for me, I feel like the best running unfolds when you're just where you are with each step and you're present with your breath, because that's the most relaxed and efficient you're going to be if you're not distracted thinking elsewhere. But later in the race, it's so many other factors, but I think they're ultimately all distractions from the task that is at hand. And if you try to just come back to where you are, you kind of, get rid of all the head noise there. But you're right.
That's a cool way to be.
I didn't think I would want to be kind of striving towards podiums or anything, but Madeira was, I'm obviously training with the intention of being the best runner and best version of myself, but it gave me a lot of self-belief coming third there. And obviously the winner of the race still won very convincingly, but he's a world mountain runner. His name was Sabo Riviere, and just watching him, but then seeing him and being like, well, I wonder what it takes how many years or what things now in the journey take me to becoming that. And it was very inspiring to be on the same, I guess, race and courses as those guys.
Yeah, because the Madeiras, it's up there. Like it's a well-known like world event, right? And to be competing with those guys, not only competing, but obviously being in a podium and having that mindset now that you could be up in that sort of elite pedigree. I mean, was that always the plan to do that for you? I mean, where did it sort of come from going into running? Because I know you ran a lot when you were younger, and then you went away from it, and then you sort of came back to it. And I'm happy to unpack a lot of that as the conversation unfolds. But at the moment, where did you think, once you were back into running, where did you think, okay, I'm really going to not just run and there's so many levels of running in recreational running, for me, it's mainly just for a bit of fitness and health, but where were you like, okay, I'm going to start competing, and not only competing, but really pushing myself to that sort of next level?
Yeah, I think it unfolded very organically in the sense that it was never something I really could have foreseen at all. I initially started running again during the COVID period because I decided to have a year off alcohol with one of my good mates, and then it sounds kind of silly, but I guess my family is quite competitive in terms of sporting between me and one of my sisters and my dad. And Dad used to have a running club, and I never have run that much. And I just, during the COVID period where there wasn't too much else to do, I started running a lot and just picked Dad's 10K PB and just set it as a goal to just see if I could run as quick as Dad. And so I hadn't even run trails to that point yet. And one of my friends, Ben Catley, who's also a musician, after I'd done that 10K training block, he said, "Oh, let's go out and run some trails one day." And I was like, "Okay, like we'll go out to the hills in Perth." We went to Lesmurdy and ran at Whistlepipe Gully, which is beautiful. And it was like my eye-opener moment. I was like, wow, like, hang on, this is there's something more about this. It's just like going out and being in nature. And sure, I'm still running and I'm getting some fitness benefits, but I feel really calm and free out in this environment. So I just started trail running, and I changed my training programs to be longer, but I was just going out and exploring trails. So training looked a lot different. All of a sudden I went from doing, whether it's like 5x1K on the flats on a footpath, I went from going out and just doing long trail runs and just exploring. And I was learning a lot about the area I've never seen before in my backyard, and also learning a lot about myself. And so I think my racing success was really at Madeira was a product of, I got to travel around Australia twice last year, one for my own music tour, and then also one with an artist called Felipe Baldemir. And during those times, I made a goal of finding the steeper terrain in Australia and exploring new national parks. So training wasn't very structured, and there was lots of driving and things, but I got lots of time on my feet, and I just loved exploring new places. And I think just all the time of doing something you love ended up meaning that I was quite fit for Madeira. So it was a bit of a roundabout backwards way of training for it, but I think it's a sustainable way because the time I spend out there is because I just thoroughly enjoyed it. So
it's pretty magical, the whole trail running thing, and it seems like it was meant to be for you, which it happens for a lot of people. I don't think people, come out with a plan to start trail running. We did a half marathon maybe a couple of months ago here. Every year we just get a few crew in town and we run over the range here in Exmouth, and we go either from town over to Yardie Creek Homestead or the other way around. It's about it's like a half marathon trail run. And if I was nowhere ready to do it, I've been sort of toning up and mainly focusing on a bit more weight loss and getting lean and really getting my weight down to then pick up and really, sort of get my athletic sort of side going. But I thought I'll give it a go anyway. I was nowhere near ready for it and I struggled. I think the last time I ran it, I was fairly fit. I did it in about maybe between 2 and 2.5 hours. This time it took me about 3 and I battled like hugely. After about the 11K mark, I really struggled. I ran it. I managed to run it in, but I wouldn't call it a successful run, But we had some people that joined in at the last minute, and there's people that were runners in town, and they thought, oh, yeah, sure, I'll have a go. It was through on Facebook, and a few of the crew that had never trail run before, you're seeing them at the end. We had a bit of a debrief and breakfast at one of the cafes, and the look on some of the people's faces, you knew that they were hooked as trail runners after that first experience. It was like, it's so cool to see that, like that stoke and that level up, it's like, oh, there's an extra dimension to running. Like, how cool is this? I think we recruited a few extra trail runners after that event.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. Just with regards to, since we've been here in the Blue Mountains, for example, we've got to show a few visiting friends just a couple of our favorite trails and go for just a little trail run, whether it be like an hour or 90 minutes at an easy pace. But then like you can see the moment when it kind of clicks. They're like, oh yeah, I kind of get why you do this. And it's like, it's so nice. I guess it's like if the equivalent of watching your friend get a really good wave or something. It's like you almost get more satisfaction out of seeing someone else really enjoy an experience that they've never had before versus experiencing it yourself. It's really nice.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you nailed it before when you were sort of talking. trail running's got a really good way of, because you're in nature and it makes you present, like kind of automatically, because you're taking in your surroundings, where if you're running around roads and around town, you're more focused on your pace and stuff like that, where trail running, you're less focused on your pace and it kind of slows you down a little bit. You can get control of your breath and gets you in that moment, and you are very present, which is a really cool thing to have for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, I think just adding on that too, it's like I know when the terrain becomes more technical, there isn't much room for the mind to be elsewhere. So whether you're just observing where your feet are landing or scanning the ground or something like that, I think if you've had a busy day and you can go out and be moving on terrain like that, it's kind of, once you get home, you've just spent this chunk of time just being really just that present with what you're doing there. And it's obviously meditation and things are really helpful as well, but also I think it's just an awesome thing for naturally accessing that kind of present, being aware. So yeah, it's cool.
And you mentioned a bit earlier when you were sort of saying when you get to that part of the race where you need to get the job done and you're thinking about getting that third place rather than the fourth, but you talk about being present in the moment there, which is obviously a lot harder because your body's in a state of stress and, you know, things are probably starting to shut down and you've got to be conscious. But when you talk about being present in the moment, is that something that you practice for in training, to say, okay, when it gets to this stage, I need to really make sure that I'm in that state? Or like, how do you know when it's, you know, at that point that you need to engage that sort of mindset?
Yeah, I think definitely do practice it in training in a couple different ways. So daily I would practice like a mindfulness meditation, and that would involve, in some parts, some days it might be a visualization, but other days, I think one of the bases of my mindfulness meditation is focus on the breath, and also breath counting is something I've learned that really works with in meditation, but also in running. So if I go out and on my harder workouts, if it's say, for example, like hill reps where you're doing harder intensity hill sprints. I did one the other week on a place here called the Golden Stairs, and it's uneven limestone staircases, and it's probably an average grade of 20%, but some sections are like 40%. And going really hard, maybe 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 effort for those 3-minute segments, I find that the only way to get through it without having a lot of mental suffering is that once it starts being quite uncomfortable, is that I will count 1 on the in-breath, 2 on the out-breath, and I'll go to 10. And then once I reach 10, I'll start at 1 again. And I know if I've gone past 10, that I'm not present. If I've gone off and thinking, and I'm thinking about how much my legs are hurting or how much further I've got to go, it's not beneficial in me getting up the hill. So I'll note it and start counting from 1 again. And I think in a race like the end of Madeira, when I was having all these wacky side thoughts, some of them were like, I'd feel a sensation in my hamstring and my thought would be like, your leg's going to cramp, you're not going to finish, you're third right now, but you're going to DNF.
Yeah.
And that's like the perfect moment to be like thinking unpleasant and then come back to breath counting. And then it's interesting because I think when you do this in training, you realize the negative thinking locks your body up more. And then when you can come back to being with observing your breath, even the out breath, your body releases. And I think it's something that you can experiment with yourself. But I think there's a difference of going for a run where you're not present with the breath versus if you're present with the breath, the body naturally is at a state of ease, whether it's your shoulders are a little bit more relaxed or the body's just letting go of tension throughout the run. So I think it's quite profound, but it's so much easier said than done. I'm always grappling with just, you can practice it so much, but it always is just a challenge.
Totally. Yeah, I get it because you are, every race is different. Things go differently. You can't always predict what's going to happen in the race, and your mind can go all different sorts of places. You have those moments of self-doubt. I've had sort of moments, where you're doing like an endurance run or something like that, and halfway through you're just completely crashing, and you're just thinking, what have I done this for? What am I doing to myself? And then you second guess yourself. You second doubt. You start doubting your abilities and everything. It can easily snowball in the wrong direction. But like you said, to have some sort of trigger or awareness to go, hang on a second, this is just BS that my brain's going to, because things are going bad. Like, let's not let it compound and get worse. Let's have reassess and just work on what we can. And it's a really common thing on endurance runners I spoke to Phil Gore, about his backyard ultra stuff and how he zones it all back into being present at the time. Whatever that is for some people, it's just concentrating on one thing. It's just one step after the next, or whatever that may be as well. So it definitely seems to be a really good theme for that sort of next level of endurance that you guys are doing.
Yeah, it's interesting that it all ends up, I think a lot of life comes back to the best, most efficient version of yourself often comes out when you just, you're there with what's happening and not in putting energy into those thought patterns or anything like that. And like you said, we all focus on the breath because it's always there and it's right there and we can feel it, but there's nothing different about focusing on a sensation of your foot or something like that too. That's still grounding you exactly where you are.
Yeah.
So there's a billion different ways, which is the cool part. It's just like finding which one kind of makes sense for you. And that's such an interesting thing with running. It's like everyone's got their own little way of navigating difficult things, or it's fascinating.
When you hit the pain cave, embrace it, as people call it.
Yeah. I thought I'd hit that pain cave before in Madeira, but then on the weekend, I was like, there's a new song by Bahamas, and it talks about how he's into the unknown, and it's a bit of a like a song that's kind of taken the piss a little bit. And I was thinking of that song in there. I was like, this is uncharted territory. Like, I get what people mean by the pain cave now, because I've absolutely busted into it, and I was just like, I just don't know if I'll be able to get back, because I didn't know that it was possible to feel like this. But then once the race is finished, you forget what it feels like. So right now, when I'm all comfortable again, I'm like,
sign up for
was it
another one.
that hard? Yeah, isn't it funny?
And also, I mean, because it's a shorter distance, right? Like, you run further and you think, oh, it's a shorter distance. Surely it's maybe possibly easier. But then you had the vert, so different mindset. How did that play into it at all?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Because for Madeira, I had different, I guess, intensities to aim for to try and make it through the whole race. So, like, for example, they're not heart rate values that are applicable to everyone, but for me, for that race, we just aimed at like going at around 160 BPM as the max we wanted to hit on the ups in Madeira. And in hindsight, I think I probably could have pushed it further, but that's unknown as well. But then for this race here, the Hounslow Classic, obviously being 42 with the elevation, it's a lot shorter race, almost half. You can run it at a lot higher intensity. So I was targeting just pretty much anything below threshold on the ups, which is quite intense. And then I was hoping to relax on the downs, but the pace was so hot with the few guys that were running with me at the start that we didn't have much rest on the downs. And then the day I think it was our first couple of warm days. So there wasn't much rest on the downhill segment. So I ended up running for almost 5 hours at an average heart rate of like pretty much 170 BPM, which is a lot higher than Madeira, which is an average of 154. So it's like, it's big effort. Yeah, it's like a 5 hour tempo.
Yeah, I was just about to
So
say it's like a really, really long tempo run. Yeah.
So yeah, so I think that's the difference. Is that's actually why short races scare me, is because the intensity that you have to maintain is a lot different to versus maybe at 85 or longer or something. You do the training and if you race a smart race, usually your fitness will shine through, and you'll run the race that you most of the time probably deserve from the work you've put in. Versus a
Yeah.
shorter trail race is like, what do you have in your brain and body today, and
Yeah.
how much are you willing to suffer?
Yeah, because you're going to be going faster, right? And pushing it a lot harder.
Yeah, even impact on the body is just like multiplied
Yeah.
just from the downhill
Okay.
speed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The quad burners. I kind of, when you were talking then and you're speaking about your mindfulness and how you add that to meditation, where did that come in for you because of the running, or were you into that before you started running? Like how did you know to sort of incorporate that, or was that something you've always kind of done?
Yeah, I think the like crossover of mindfulness into running um, was not intentional, and it was because I had established a mindfulness practice before. And the reason I just decided to practice mindfulness daily was that I was actually pretty anxious, very anxious as a person when younger. And basically, I thought I'd got out of the stage. I wasn't experiencing panic attacks anymore. So I thought, cool, I'm not that anxious anymore. And then I had a relationship that I was in. And all of a sudden, I realized that my anxiety had just shapeshifted and manifested in a different form. And I clicked one day. I was like, if I want to give this relationship the best crack, I have to start practicing mindfulness every day, because my mind is throwing up things that are completely not true. And I need to a way to be able to skillfully note these patterns in my mind that have probably happened from relationships before that, or just past experiences. And it was that which made me do a daily practice. And then yeah, I guess once I started practicing, I realizing that there was lots of sources of anxiety in my life, and it was important to sit down in the morning as like a screening check and see where it was coming from each day, whether it's like a daunting thing coming up in a week's time or this or that. And so, but then I'd go out and run, and I'd realize on the mornings where I'd meditated before running, my perceived effort would be lower. And I was like, interesting, like there's less resistance. My brain is not resisting this activity, and I'm taking in more of the run when I'm on the run. And so I began just experimenting with different runs and how to enjoy it. And I noticed that I don't run with music, but I noticed that on the days that I feel an impulse to run with music, that is the cue for me to go sit down and meditate, because I want to distract myself from what is happening right now. And as soon as I meditate again and go run out the door and have no music, I'm okay with what's going on. But yeah, so there's all these little cues that I kind of listen to now and know how to, I guess, what they're signaling at what I need to do. So rather than being a distraction technique, yeah, you can work with it.
Super interesting, because it sounds like you've kind of got, self work and sort of being this better person, or always putting in that effort to be your best, and it definitely seems to run parallel with being a runner. So they complement each other perfectly, right? It's a really cool thing to have, man. Like that's epic.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's like the main motive is the wanting to be the best version of myself today. And sometimes, like, well, part of being human is being really flawed, and knowing that
Yeah.
you've got downfalls, but wanting to look at them front on and still try. But I think as a runner now, having that meditation experience for quite a few years now, I just see it as like, if I was ever going to talk to someone about running or coaching someone, I just realized with like the race on the weekend is that there's two components. It's like you can be really, really fit, and that's helpful, but so much of it is the mind still, to actually allow yourself to go beyond, because
Yeah.
your mind always wants to tell you to stop, and it would tell you, it loves making you feel small. And then I think running's awesome because you get to achieve things that your mind told you weren't probably possible, and you go have that aha moment of, hang on, I just did something my mind told me I wasn't capable of. So it's empowering in that way.
Yeah, it can kind of, for me, like running changed my life in so many ways. And it was the major factor. You know, it all started with that sort of running journey for me. It changed everything. It changed how I looked at things. And now I feel like almost I'm really getting on top of things, and I'm working how to be that more complete person in every department rather than sort of a piece here and a piece there. And running it complements that, but it's not everything, because you speak to so many runners, and when they get injured and they can't run, like everything falls apart because they're so solely relying on that. When, like what you're saying, backs it up so well, that running is definitely a part of you becoming everything you can be, but it's not all of it, right? It's definitely a major contributing factor, but it's not the be all and end all. But it definitely helps.
No, I think you're so right. And after the Madeira Island Ultra Trail, I actually had a bit of trouble with my lower leg, and I faced that very problem. I was sitting there and I just was pretty down about not being able to move. And I go, it's like, how is it that you can be able to run that far and that fast one day and then not move the other? And all these questions come up, like, who am I if I'm not running? Do people think of me the same if I'm not able to move, and all these different things? And then I think that feeds back into, like, it forces you back into your meditation practice to realize that, look, if you can run fast and run well, that's awesome, but that's really, it's not really who you are. And then I
Yeah.
think the best parts of running are often what we were describing before, is getting to share, whether it's a beautiful natural place with someone and have that community aspect. So I always remind myself of, while running is one of the greatest sources of freedom, getting to trail run in my life, also to try have some balance and remind yourself how trivial it is to race or to spend so much time running too. I think the why has to be always there. And it's like, if you're spending a lot of time running, but you're really enjoying your time out in nature and it's a big source of silence or solitude for you and it's adding value and energizing you, then awesome. But when it starts to turn for the wrong reasons, running can be a different kettle of fish as well.
Yeah, it can change the whole thing. It's, you start focusing too much on your splits or your times and that sort of thing, where it's less productive. And also too, you see so many people that they'll, especially if they're like career runners, once they kind of get to a point where if it's not sustainable because they've pushed their body to the limits and their body starts breaking down, that's another aspect too, because you're not going to obviously be able to do it probably forever or at a level that you used to, where you've got to sort of go, okay, what do I really want to get out of this? Is this for me inside, or is it for me as an athlete? Is it career wise or whatever? Where for me, I definitely have chilled out a bit with it because with a work, family, podcast sort of schedule, I'm just grateful any chance I get to be out there. And for what it gives me inside, I definitely want it to be sustainable. So it's something I can do my entire life, not just, achieve goals. And for me, it's less driven about the sort of success. I'm getting into my mid 40s now. And, I think probably athletically, my potentially my best days were behind me as to where I could push things. But now it's just a matter of what it does give me. and it's a great factor in me enjoying my life at this stage and being being that good version of me for that everyone's going to benefit from.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing is that, and that's what I realized when I got injured. There's just a shockingly clear that peak performance is so fleeting, and that the best part is getting to do something you love, and that benefits you because of the positive flow and effects each day. So like yourself saying, hey, when you get spare time, you love going for a run, and it contributes to you trying to work on being a better person and things like that. That's what I think, the best part of running is. And so that's a hard one to balance, because I think it's hard to hold that kind of approach. Sometimes I go below it and then I go above it. Yeah. And that's the tricky part.
And you always want to improve a little bit. Like I definitely still want to always improve as a runner. At the moment, I'm not really in athletically great shape. I'm sort of coming on a bit of a weight loss phase, so I'm really getting close to being quite toned and trim. And then when I get to that sort of point there, then I'm going to pick my running back up. And when I first sort of lost most of the weight, like 7 years ago, I was running a lot faster, and I was my 10K PBs were amazing. There's no way I could do anything like that at the moment, but I know I'll get back there. And I always want to imagine myself improving. Like I never want to level out. I always want to have that little bit of improvement, and you can do that. You've got the beauty that you can always do that. It's just got to be relative to where you are at that point in time. But it's definitely still always nice to have that little goal to chase, and have something to look forwards to and something to work towards for sure.
And I think just with regards to that, I guess, less steep gradient of improving, that's the way to build a good base with regards to resilience in your body, strength in your body. Small weekly gains will always trump big workouts, and I think it's just a much more sustainable way to go. You said mid-40s, and you think your peak fitness is potentially past, but I would suggest that that's maybe, you could easily go past them still, because endurance sports are just weird like that. Just all the top guys are pushing into that mid-40s range, and it's so interesting to see. And I think that's purely because people were just consistent for a long time. And that's what, when I look at certain people winning races and things like that, I'm like, this guy's just been training really consistently and smart for a long time. There's been nothing crazy. And that's the cool part, is that if you can be disciplined and not put too much strain on yourself in one certain week, I think long term you might not see it, but if you took a photo today and then keep training steadily and then took a photo next year, you'd be like, hang on, I have come a long way. So yeah,
and I can be incredibly hard on myself now because it's not a body shaming thing, but I think to get to where you want to get to, you have to be really honest with yourself, and do those regular check-ins that keeps you on track. But if I look at myself where I was, 8 years ago, I was 110 kilos, where now I'm 64. And I kind of leveled out at sort of 75, 80 kilos once I lost the bulk of that weight. And it was only recently in the last 3 or 4 months that I've gone, okay, I've worked out over that period, that's 5 or 6 year period of balance between relationships with friends, being a dad. I've had 2 more kids since, and I've got 3 kids now. Being there for my wife and supportive, and all of these life challenges that come with that. And it's taken me, 6 years to get to a point where I'm now ready to hone in on that final goal. And I've worked out a way where I can be happy in myself, to be completely me, and then project that outwards for everyone as well, and still go out and have a good time and be social and be present for everyone else. It's always a constant journey, and you kind of have to walk the steps to learn that, right?
Definitely. And I am always have so much respect for people tackling multiple kind of, whether it's passions or, say, for example, yourself juggling running, a podcast, work, and also trying to be just a good family member as well. I always think like that. Well, at the moment, I'm so lucky because I don't have too many, I guess, things that require time, and that's where big questions come in. Is that at the moment I can devote a lot of time to it, but it's at the point it's like, what's the sacrifice or what's the opportunity cost of spending all this time if someone else is missing out? So yeah, that's huge questions.
It's a big one. Yeah. And it takes a lot to work it out. But I think I realized for a little while there, if you push too hard at one thing, like something else is going to miss out. And for me, I was pushing really hard at the running. And, I think other factors in my life were missing out. I was being incredibly hard on myself. So I was being harder on and the people around me. So I backed off on that. And, it's always I guess, a juggling act. But now I'm sort of, like you said, that visualization. I think years ago I couldn't visualize how I was going to be able to do all of those things, where now I really have a great visualization that I can athletically get to where I originally set out to be and still be all of those things. I'm working it out a lot better, and I'm incredibly lucky to have the family that I've got. But yeah, I really do see it now that I can do it and make it happen. Where before, if you can't visualize those things and actually really grasp and say, yep, I reckon I can, that's achievable, you will struggle. But I feel like now I've really got a good handle on that, and I'm getting towards it.
Yeah, and that's amazing because I probably was in the same basket in terms of my default setting was my brain would undermine myself or my capabilities or anything like that. And then whether it's small little events or maybe just gradual progress, but when you say visualizing, I guess if you can visualize it, you're also believing in it. And I think when you're having that belief in yourself, it's amazing because it just completely changes the picture. And I feel like for me, running in the last year and specifically since Madeira, all of a sudden there's not a tendency to be like, but this runner lives over here. They're living in the mountains. They're better than me, or this or that. It's like, like they're very talented people, but I believe in myself too. And that's such the positive flow-on effect in terms of doing it. It doesn't even matter if you achieve the thing, but the energy you unlock, and it's just, if you believe, it's just like there's no resistance really. It's like, no, I can do that. Versus when you're going, I can't do that. That's a big potential swing of energy, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it sets apart the difference between like a dream and a visualization, where a dream kind of isn't backed by the self-belief. You've kind of got this dream and you think, oh yeah, one day that would be really nice. But a visualization is like, no, I can see this, and there's something in you that's, you've worked out the plan, or you've got that backing behind you that visualization is something that is achievable. To have that, and you can see it, it's clear, it's a lot clearer. There's more detail, there's all that stuff that you've kind of already, if you're visualizing it, you've kind of already got it worked out,
Yeah, that was a good way to put it in terms of dreaming versus visualizing. And I would even, when you said that, it provoked something in me, and I say, you feel it. You can visualize it, but you also have that, you feel it. You're like, oh no, like I can do this. And that's, I think that's been something in the last few years that I've realized, is that a lot of the times you can't rationalize one way you want to go with your thinking mind, but there's just a big gut feeling there, and it's like, it's often very correct. And it's sometimes you investigate it and you go, nah, but a lot of the time, you just can't deny that gut feeling. And I think a lot of the best kind of shifts in my life recently have been, someone will ask me why I moved to the Blue Mountains, and I give them a whole lot of words, but then I'll always end with, I just had a huge gut feeling that I wanted to be here, and I just wanted to investigate that curiosity. Yeah, and that's such a mystery, but there's something else there that's calling us for sure.
And there can be something that's said for, uh, I wouldn't say throwing caution to the wind and just going and doing stuff, but you sometimes you do sort of have to realize and go, okay, I'm not really sure what's on the other end of this sort of thought process, but something's telling me that I need to follow this. And you don't have to have it all worked out in other ways to take that path, but you just know that there's something that's going to be rewarding or that's there. And that's always part of that constant progression, you know, the constant improvement. You know, I don't ever want to really ever accept that, you know, my life's just going to level out and I'm just in this sort of, you know, area where I'm just kind of just being constantly, where it's always like, no, I just always want to be moving forward in some way, shape, or form, you know?
Yeah, yeah, the feeling of not even necessarily. I remember reading actually something about talking about moving forward, the feeling of moving forward, and how important it was for human well-being. And it was interesting because it wasn't even, you didn't even need any hard data to actually suggest that you were moving forward. But for the well-being, you just needed a
Yeah.
sense that you were moving forward. And I was just like, it's so true. It's like just the sense that the journey's still progressing.
Yeah, it fits your purpose. I think that sort of definitely fills that purpose cup in your life, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I was chatting with some friends about that the other day. I live with two housemates who are the same age as myself, and we all have things we're very passionate about in life, but we can't quite figure out how to turn these passions into, I guess, a way that we can earn an income, but still feel like we're adding meaning to other people's lives and also
Yeah.
doing work that inspires us. And I think that's like a massive part of my friend group at the moment. There's probably six of us that are all in the same boat, and we haven't really put in lots of effort and doing lots of work. But the wheels kind of haven't quite got traction yet. And yeah, we're talking about how just one half of the year your purpose is so clear and it's this thing, and then all of a sudden it completely shifts. Like for me, my purpose shifts around a lot at the moment, and coming into like recording a new EP next month, I find that recording brings me quite a lot of like meaning and purpose in my life, because I get to share new things that I'm discovering through life with other people. But then once I release it,
Yeah.
that music's out there in the world and people are potentially experiencing it. But back home, life's completely normal for me. So it's like if I hold on to
Yeah.
that sense of purpose,
You've done that ages ago. That's been, yeah.
it's gone. Like it's not helpful for me to hold on
Yeah.
to that project. Um, so it's a very, very small window of meaningful and purposeful work in a year as a musician, I feel. And if you're not touring, and at the moment I've really just decided not to tour because it's hard work, and it's also, I find I'm becoming more aware of how challenging it is physically and mentally. And it's if you're really driven and you've got like something that you really want to share, a new album or something like that, then it's awesome. And if music is your only thing, then like perhaps I've had that in the past where I've really been like, yep, this is it. But then now where it's like I'm living in a place that inspires me, I'm enjoying my running and doing a little bit of video work and things like that. I actually see touring as, I look at the opportunity costs of touring and I'm like, oh, like I know which one I'd rather. Like I feel content when I'm at home. And that's weird because it's like, well,
Yeah.
then how do you go forward in music? But I guess that is also knowing that as soon as you stop touring as well, you can do a great tour and have awesome connections with people the whole time. And then the tour stops and you're at home by yourself and you've just been so engaged socially for so long. And then you just crash because you're just like, all of a sudden, no one's talking to you. You've got nothing to share with people. And it's like, you're just dormant at home and you go, all right, well, what is my purpose now? And it's so interesting. I don't think musicians talk about it too much, but the ups and downs of it yeah, it's like being just in a slingshot.
Yeah, it's good that you sort of brought it up, and it was like a really nice natural sort of segue into the next part that I was wanting to get into, which was the music side of it, and because that's always been there for you. Like you've been a musician for a lot longer than I guess your more recent running. And I was sort of wanting to ask it how they coincide in your life, I suppose. So that was really cool to hear how that's been. But I mean, I sort of got into your music and got quite in depth listening to it, once we sort of started being in contact about doing a podcast. So, and I'm just listening to your music. I would put it on at work when I had a quiet space to sort of be absorbed. And I'm just listening for like sort of cues and, subtleties inside your songs and your songwriting to see at which point, things in your life were changing. And, you're talking about being outside and amongst nature. Okay, that's when you started becoming, a trail runner. And, you notice the running inspiration creeping in to your songwriting. So it was super interesting. And yeah, I was going to be sort of talking about how it has impacted your music. But and you're right with the energy levels. I mean, it's almost like touring and having that engagement and those dopamine hits from those massive engagements of energy with your fans and audiences can be comparable to like what some people would say training for a really big event or a race, where they've trained the whole time. And then, they get to the race and they do well and they get everything out of it they need to. But then straight on the back of that, you fly home and, that's it. Where the training and the process has probably been the best part of it, and then the race itself is just the cherry on top.
Yeah, you're definitely right. And I think most of my touring has been headline touring for myself which is quite stressful because it's kind of like whether you're really switched on or not with regards to the workings of your own ego. I think when you're advertising a tour and it's a personal project, if you're not selling tickets well, even if it's a result of the economy or anything like that, at the end of the day, unless you're really, really doing work on yourself, it feels like a hit to your self-esteem because you're like, it's just, and it's so up and down. Like some tours go fantastic and then for no reason, the next one's just down. And like, I think some of the more recent tours, it would appear like touring is all back up to scratch and firing again. But from chatting to friends and I got to tour playing electric guitar for some other friends too, and things are quiet and nothing's changed about the amount of people that are listening to their music around Australia or anything. It's just people are saving money. And so that's really tricky. And then also when you were talking about with regards to like building up for a race and then the come down kind of thing too, I think the build up is huge when you're promoting your own tour. Because every day you wake up and you've got an email of how many tickets you sold. And that can be brutal when it's not going well. So all of a sudden, not only are you going on tour for a month, but the lead up month is very challenging to be just enjoying your day because the stress creeps in, and because if you're taking a band and things like that too. So I think the most enjoyable tour for me recently was I got to travel with Felipe, who I mentioned earlier, Felipe Baldemir. And but the why was different. It was like Felipe is a beautiful person. He's got awesome energy, good messages in his songs. I didn't need to promote the shows. All the friends he was surrounded by, Kieran and Sophie and everyone were all amazing people. So it didn't really feel like a tour. I got to open up the night for someone who I really respected and who inspired me. And then I was like, it's interesting. Each tour is really, really specific. And I'm realizing now that to keep an eye out for certain things that bring that meaning aspect in, because I see him as someone I can learn off in the way he just showers positivity out on everyone. And so, yeah, being more wise of protecting your energy in terms of only doing it the big travel and the big shows and all these things for when it's something you really believe in and you can see it's worth being part in. And so, yeah, it's tricky, but kind of got off your question, but
Sharing the onus sometimes as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's nice maybe that I'm not used to doing this. Yeah, I'm not used to doing this support position, and it feels really nice to at the start of the night when people come in, go like, all right, there's a bit of responsibility in me here. I want to set a really nice vibe for this room so that they're already in a relaxed, enjoyable mood for when Felipe comes on. So you're like, that's the being of service part. And I enjoyed that more than headline touring because the attention was a little bit less on me and it was more just a part of making something memorable, like a nice night for everyone and the attention on someone else. That was nice.
I really like what you said there about that sort of service. It's something that I heard a while ago, and it really resonated with me in the fact that if you're sometimes that inspiration can be a little bit waning, but if you are considering whatever you're doing to be of service to other people, then that you're never going to run out of inspiration. Even when it's tough. It's amazing how sometimes when you are you're not super confident about what you're doing, and obviously podcasting is that branch out for me where I'm just doing something for myself, and this is my sort of passion project. And it's easy to lose that motivation because you think you're a pretty small operation. You don't have huge numbers and huge listeners, and who's going to sort of want to listen to your content? But then something will happen out of the blue where someone will engage with you saying that it's meaningful and it's got something in there, and it's something one of your stories or your guest stories have really resonated with them, and then you're like, oh, that's right, it is out there for people. And when you know that what you're doing is of service to people, it gives you that spark to keep going, regardless of whatever your mind's telling you not to do, and a million reasons why you shouldn't be doing it anymore, and all of those things. So that was good comments there. I thought that was well worthwhile.
Yeah, and what you said there, I just like resonate with so hard. I think maybe even year and a half or 2 years ago, I just had this thing in my head because I felt pressure with the release cycle of music. It was like, put a lot of music out and frequently, otherwise you're going to fall off the face of the earth. Kind of, that's the way things have kind of headed towards with digital streaming. And even social media, I've always struggled with being active on social media. And I just had one thing and I just was journaling, writing it down, and it just was like, maybe that we don't all need to do the whole quantity and lots of content thing. And I was just like, for me, what do I value? And I value quality over quantity every day of the week. So it's like, maybe in the next 2 years, I only write 2 or 3 good songs, but I'd rather just focus on writing a song when there's something there to write about and put it out and not worry about the quantity or anything. And the same with shows. I think you could ask any musician of some of their most memorable experience playing shows, and it's often a small room, a show that probably didn't sell that well, but then all of a sudden what you don't see is that you got to meet half the crowd and chat and share like proper human stories with someone that's a complete stranger. We had someone staying here before this week, one of my friends, Jade Lucas, and she's one of my like best friends now, and we met from a show where we played in a whiskey bar and no one listened, but it was like, because it was so small, you get to meet people. And I think it gets to this scale where everyone tells you success is playing to this many people in a room, and you get to do that. And then you end up having to shy away from the people because it's overwhelming, or someone comes up and has something really nice to say to you, but there's people waiting behind them, so their story gets cut short. And I think it's just such an interesting thing. So yeah, I think where everything is heading towards quantity, I think, quality is still where it's at.
I think you can definitely measure success in different ways, where if you can do things on your own terms, it's better, like you say, where there's not that external pressure to put out more content. and content where it's not content to match whatever else is out there that's getting a lot of clicks, but it's genuine content of your own, where it's you more being yourself rather than fitting to match certain algorithms. It's so important because it's harder work and it's a slower process, but the engagement is so much more meaningful. When you get fans, you're getting real fans. You're getting fans that are buying into you for and you won't lose them. Where other fads that maybe getting more likes or more hits can be forgotten quicker. For that genuine engagement, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And even at the moment, from the race on the weekend, we captured a lot of footage and have been filming a lot around the Blue Mountains. Perhaps I'm stubborn, but I really like long form content. So I'm looking forward to next week, just editing a long form YouTube video, because I just think it gives people maybe less people to view it than a reel. But I think if someone only has 15 or a short span of attention that doesn't want to consume the whole story, then perhaps they're not the right target audience for some of the themes that I'm going to be talking about and sharing in the video anyway. And I think that's realizing it's like, what am I singing about in a lot of my songs? And realizing that, I guess I was telling someone the other day that there was a big gap between the stuff I used to sing about in songs, that it was kind of represented the life I wanted to live. And then it was probably like a 2 or 3 year lag of when I actually started aligning with what I was singing about and writing about. And I think that's so interesting. Sometimes it's right there in front of you, the answer, but things distract you. And it was a bit of an aha moment. I was like, I finally done what I was too afraid to do about, but I've been talking about all this time. It's weird.
That's awesome. But it can be like that with you. You've got to learn to block out those all the distractions and things coming in sometimes, and have a step back to be able to focus on, or to see something that was right there, like you said, that you couldn't see before or whatever. So yeah, that's really cool, man.
Yeah, and when you said before, you go.
Well, yeah, there's a bit of a lag all of a sudden. I think once we started recording, there's been a sort of change in lag, but that's all right. We can fix that because this will record at your end and my end. So even though the quality's gone down, and I can cut all this out, but even though the quality's dropped, because it's recording at both ends, the quality will still actually be really good, and I'll just download both of them from my end and then stitch them together. It'll be sweet as there won't be that sort of gap. So it's all good. But yeah, when you were saying it's a confidence thing as well, it sounds like, because you're when you feel like you're not doing that great and ticket sales are down, that affects your confidence, which it would ultimately affect your creativity as well, right? Where it's a confidence-based thing as well, which can be quite dangerous. Like you said, it is dangerous in the fact that if you're not feeling great about ticket sales or the tour, I mean, you're going to have that cycle as well where you want to be inspired to write as well, right? So I know some people write on the road while the energy's good, or there's some people might come home and write when it's quiet. Like, how does that side of it work for you when you're inspired to write?
Yeah, I think I am the latter of what you were saying. I tend to prioritize when I'm on the road or when I'm out exploring or things like that. I would never take a journal with me. I think a lot of the time I feel like my brain's just filling up with a lot of things and experiences as well. And then after a while, even there might be things I've been semi-thinking about for a long time, and they seem like they got no answer. And then one day, it just seems to be like a boiling point where one day I'll sit down at a cafe. Planes are really weird. I feel like it's always a forced time to sit down and journal on a plane, and it just like, you're also quite tired and there's just this running commentary in your brain and it just goes blah, and just like lots of stuff comes out real fast. And sometimes I would not even read it back, but then coming back to when it gets closer to writing songs for an album or something, sometimes I'll have instrumental parts that are just there that have been brewing for maybe 6 months or 12 months. And then I might flick back in a journal and I think, well, what kind of chords am I playing and how does this instrumental piece feel to me and what kind of messaging would it actually match? So some songs form like that. And then others are completely different. Like more recently, I've just been sitting downstairs and playing and just rambling out words. And usually the words aren't too too special at the start, but all of a sudden, I think when you do it that way, the melody and where the words fit is quite good, and you realize, okay, like this kind of length sentence fits well in this song. So all of a sudden, you got a template of what length sentence works, and you can go and expand on the idea that you want to in a journaling session after, and then come back to that song. So ultimately, I think if you had a formula for a song in the past, the best way to write a new song is to completely forget that formula and be open to anything happening.
Unreal. It's cool to know. I've never considered myself to be a creative person at all. Like I've tried and I've thought about it, but it's just not that music side of it's not there. I mean, I play a couple of instruments, but it's never been there for me to write music or perform in front of people musically. But it wasn't really until I sort of thought about the podcasting side of things where that creative side came out for me, because I suppose being hugely inspired and having that purpose, and that drive to share stuff with people and to speak to incredible people like yourself and all the guests I've had on. But it seemed crazy at the start. But I remember speaking to a friend of mine, Rob Stockdale. He's the CEO of a labour hire company, Skill Hire. And he said to me, just start, as he said, that's all you need to do. You can work the rest out as you go. But as long as you put something out there, like you say, write some stuff down, put some words out, play some music, get that stuff out there, and it'll piece together as it goes. And that's exactly what it did for me. And I've been lucky enough to be able to apply that to a few things, because that thought process and that sort of analysis paralysis can stop you in your tracks, and it can stop these great things from ever taking off. So, it was a really nice one some great advice there from a good friend and a successful person to sort of hear that. And I thought, okay, this is where I need to actually just do it. Don't worry about the things I don't know. Just get out there and start. So it was, a really cool thing. It wouldn't have happened without that, I don't think.
It's such good advice for so many things in life, because there's just not many ideal times where you can actually be like, this is the perfect time, or you can always justify that something is missing and tell yourself that there'll be a better time than now. But you're right. What you're describing is like when you take that first step and then just as you're about to take the next one kind of becomes clear. And I think that's a awesome way to go. It's just realizing that right now or at the start, it might not be the ideal version of what you're hoping to produce in the future, but that's always going to be the case. You're always going to be improving. I think I realized that with music.
Yeah.
You can hold on and wait for so long, but what you're producing now represents like this little timestamp of the journey, and all the things you've accumulated up to there, whether it be skills or experiences and things like that, and you put it out, let go of it, and keep moving. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that I don't think perfection really ever occurs.
No, I think perfection's it's an ideal, and more than anything. And once you things can have a really instant knock-on effect. Once you do gain traction, like things can link up really quickly, but they never would unless you've started and or you put it out there and someone's like, oh, I never knew that you're interested in that. Oh, I know this person that would be great for your show, or I've got a guy that can hook you up with advice on producing, or and none of that would ever happen unless you created it and put it out there and made yourself sort of slightly accountable um, and got there. So yeah, it's letting go, and it's that whole thing of stepping outside of your comfort zone for growth and all of those things, which we it's a common thread on the show with everyone that I speak to as well.
I think that's the really cool part about creativity, whether it be podcast, music, or anything like that, is that when you're actively engaging it, I think, I view it as you're kind of, my goal is to be like an open channel where life's kind of moving through you, and what you're passionate about and experiencing and thing keep coming through you. But then it's funny because once you express it in creativity, whatever form it comes through, again, like you were saying, then you put it out in the world, and all of a sudden people are talking to you and it's coming back to you, and it's just like this really nice like loop. And then you think about, what if you never did it? And it's like, well, that's kind of a crazy thought, because if the world would be boring if you're not sharing it.
Yeah, which relates to how you rate success as well, right? I mean, success is it a monetary thing? You know, is you doing it to make money? Is that your main driver? And because that can take you down another avenue of your content and the quality of your content, what your content's about, or is it because you want to be of service and you want to help people and you want to create a space and conversations that or music that people are going to get something out of, which is a completely different driver to a monetary thing, which means that you're going to get different things out of it. And can you do it for a living? Is another thing. Like ideally, it'd be great to be able to do your passion for a living. Like I'm really, I love seeing people that can do that. And it's not always going to be, it doesn't have to be to a point where you're going to have a mansion on the hills in the nicest suburb. But if you can sustain your lifestyle and living by doing what you love, I mean, that's great success, I think, and you can maintain who you are and be the person you need to be for everyone around you. I mean, I couldn't rate success any better than that, to be honest.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think you were touching on it earlier, is that about kind of with regards to time frame and playing the long game with regards to doing things that do touch on the more quality and meaning side, is that while you might bypass the things that more instantly get traction, I think perhaps in, like, imagine 10 years down the track, I always visualize the long game of having a sustainable approach to music where I'm enjoying my life and trying to release consistently, but only if I have something to say. And I think about, well, what would it look like if I released music for 15 years straight that I was proud of and thought I was having something to say? And I think about building a career in that aspect, and I feel a lot less fearful of failure or anything like that, because it just seems like the kind of thing where you could, at the moment, I think I'm how many years into music? Maybe six years of releasing music, which seems crazy actually, because the years are getting on. But often what I'll say to my mate Josh in our house is that there's no one timeline for any of these things to take off or anything like that. And it's not linear either. Like, I guess there's something always unforeseen around the corner, and it could be potentially I start singing about things that resonate with me even more, and it touches someone on a deeper level. And even just as a wild example, perhaps they're a feature film director or something like that, and then all of a sudden one small song that hasn't been listened to much gets in a film, and I haven't changed anything I'm doing, but something like that can all of a sudden be a catalyst for growth in your career. And I just think that if you don't believe that those things are possible, then you're kidding yourself, because that's kind of the way life works, is that there's no predicting when good things happen or bad things happen. But
it's a great outlook, man. And it's a really cool thing to since we've been speaking, and even just we have sort of been chatting for a little while on and off, and super grateful for having you on the show, but also just being making another friend and bouncing stuff off and talking today. It's been epic, man, and I knew once we sort of started messaging and talking, it would be a pretty epic conversation. For people, it's very easy when you're kind of in the game about health and mindset, if you feel like you're repeating yourself a lot of the times. But for some people, it's something new that they've possibly never heard before, and it can be the thing people need to change mindsets and maybe get them out of a funk or a rut, or give them some tools to engage, and start that journey towards something different for themselves and something for the better, So thanks a lot for coming on and sharing not only your sort of life, but your insights and your mantra about things. I think there's just so much value in that, and I'm really excited to produce and share this one with everyone. It's been a great journey and a great chat. So thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Aaron. Very grateful for the new friendship and all the good chats we've had up to now, on and off the podcast. So I'm sure there'll be many more. So cheers to that.
Yeah, that's the kind of, we're always checking in to schedule when we can record, and we'll have a bit of a chat about what we're up to, and wishing each other well and positive messages. I'm kind of going to miss that once we finish recording, but I'm really looking forward to checking out your video and your content. That sounds really exciting. It's something that I'm really into at the moment on the YouTube channel, is that more authentic, real life documentation of how people's lives are getting documented and what they're doing. It's nice, genuine sort of stuff. So really looking forward to that. And please share with your links for all your platforms where if people want to listen to your music, view, find you on Instagram, social media, YouTube. If you've got those links and you want to share them with us now, and then I'll add them to our links once this is published as well.
Yeah, no worries. Basically, all my music is on Spotify, Apple Music, pretty much your preferred platform to listen to. And that's just under my name, which is Michael Dunstan. And then my Instagram is just Michael Dunstan with an underscore after my name. I think someone got in there before me. So, and that's probably the base. And then on YouTube is probably the place where I'm looking to share the longer form content regarding moving to the Blue Mountains and all my running and things like that. And hopefully there'll be lots more things coming up with recording a new EP soon. So yeah, I'm excited for the next little chapter. Excited to share it.
Yeah, we can't wait. I'll look out for the video when it drops. And your YouTube is just Michael Dunstan on YouTube?
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. No worries. Yeah, we'll check it out. I'll subscribe and check that out, because that's be cool to watch. And like I say, that long form stuff is I enjoy it, and I think it's becoming more popular across the board as well. So really cool, man. Thanks heaps again. Huge gratitude for your time, and your housemates for giving you some quiet space to record and taking time out of your schedule to chat with us and share some of your positive messages that you've got. So yeah, thank you so much, bro.